Welcome everybody. My name is Rande Howell, and we are going to be looking at fear and impulse and how to work with them and master them in your trading. And first thing, before I get started here, I would really like to thank FX Street and Vicky and Maud in particular. The appreciation I have is that these folks have demonstrated that they really care for the long-term benefit of their clients. That's very, very different. It's very unusual, and it's something that I honor and I respect. So, give them a good handshake. Okay, what we're here to do today is to take how does fear and impulse end up being a roadblock in your success as a trader? That's the first thing. And I'll ask you this question: why do you trade? The people who come to me have two primary goals that got them into trading. One is they are looking for financial independence. They don't want to work for a corporation anymore. They've had that. They're also looking for personal freedom. They're looking to be able to use their time very differently and to have time to be able to live life. And then what happens is they get into trading and they discover that there are a little more problems than they anticipated. Here, we're going to be looking at how do you build a mind for peak performance trading. Then how do you overcome fear and impulse and replace it with discipline, patience, courage, and impartiality. And key in particularly with fear-based trading, is how do you separate fear from uncertainty. What I want to do is the very first thing let's take a look at is this. Let's take a look at what trading is really all about. Is a lot of times we almost have a belief that trading is about, I just got back from the Dallas trade show. And what happens is people come up to me and says, something, I got into trading and I just simply listened to these trader education groups, and they were telling me all I have to do is get this education. And once I get this education, have this methodology, I was going to be able to go in there and I was going to be, by using this platform, I was going to be able to make money. What I discovered is that was blue sky. The problem is that I ran into a lot of fear and a lot of impulse. So here we go. What actually creates a trading system? A platform, okay? You need it. It's absolutely indispensable. You need the indicators, you need the fibs, you need the charts. You also need methodology. You need to know how to do those. Without using methodology, you're not going to be able to manage risk, which is the most fundamental thing. What happens with most people is that they forget about their personal psychology that they're bringing to their methodology. And fundamentally, out of this, that's where they blow themselves up. They don't deal with their fear and impulse issues until they're blowing themselves up in the trade. And by that time, it's way too late. Here's a woman who purchased a book from me in Dallas, and here's what she wrote as she began reading. I bought your book because I have known for some time that the reason my trading is not progressing is because of what is going on in my head and not at all to do with what is happening in the market. Listen to that. As you said, this is in the talk I gave there in Dallas. The market does what it does regardless and doesn't care whether or not I'm there or not. My goal now is to find out whether I can change or whether I need to give up. I hope it's not the latter. I cannot tell you how many people I met in Dallas that had this same issue. They were at a point where they realized, I need to get this head thing straight. Otherwise, I'm going to drain my P&L. So let's look at this. What actually keeps us stuck? There's a fallacy. There's a big fallacy that you hear. And this is generally about 3 to 4 years into trading, where there is a belief on the side of the trader that says methodology will give me the discipline and confidence to make me a winner. Okay, and what happens is all you do is you keep refining, keep tweaking that methodology, your sizing, your contracts, and when you enter, and when you add, and that's going to make the difference. The problem after 3 or 4 years, as this woman's stating, is that's not what the problem is. The truth that keeps you stuck is the mindset that you bring to your methodology is what determines outcome. The 5 inches between your ears is the most important tool in your trading plan. It's not your platform. It's not your methodology. To do this, you're going to have to understand emotion in a very different way than what you really understand right now. So, let's start here. First of all, let's say, what is the mindset? We were talking about what is the mindset that you bring to trading. This is a set of beliefs that you bring to uncertainty. Not just in trading, but particularly in trading. Your beliefs, particularly the self-limiting ones that are fear-based, are going to blow up your potential to be a successful trader. And my question to you, do you manage the risk of uncertainty, or do you attempt to avoid uncertainty? Another way of saying that is, do you trade not to lose, or do you trade to win? The vast majority of people that are trading that do not become professional and self-sufficient trade not to lose. And that is an excellent way for you to transfer your wealth to the 5% of traders who have learned to trade from a disciplined and impartial state of mind. And the real question is, do you trust your edge in the midst of uncertainty? If you find yourself hesitating, if you find yourself in fear, if you find yourself impulsively trading, the answer is no, you don't trust your edge. The truth is the edge truly is you. So, now, here's the deal, my friend. This is going to seem radical to some of you, that all thinking is emotional state dependent. Okay? When fear seizes you, ultimately what's happening is you are going to seek to avoid. You're going to run, you're going to hide, you're going to freeze, you're going to submit. Or you're going to go to anger-based trading that seeks to attack. That's revenge trading, that's over-trading. And all of a sudden what you do is you end up saying, I've got my plan, and you're sitting there, and before you know it, you see a setup, and it's not in your trading plan for the day, but you jump into it anyway. That's a formula for disaster, and that's impulse. Possibility thinking, probability management, risk management thinking is grounded very differently than fear-based. It is grounded in discipline, or what you will learn later in today is ruler. It is grounded in patience, which is something you'll learn is nurturer. It is grounded in courage, which you'll learn to be as warrior. It is grounded in partiality, which, by the way, is what you want to trade from. And that would be grounded in something I will call sage. And the key is emotional state management is the very key to building a successful trader's mind. If you are not mindful of that, you are not going to develop the mind that is necessary to do it. So, first place, let's take a look at emotions. And here's the one thing you need to get really clear in your head, is that as long as you're in fear, until fear is mastered, you are going to have your potential as a trader blocked. Fear is an emotion that is highly reactive, and it is very rigid. It will keep you out of exploring possibility of other ways you could see the world. That is just fear. So, the truth is, your brain and your psychology that emerges from brain are going to work against the development of a trader's state of mind. And the truth is that your brain was never, ever developed to be able to trade the markets. Your brain was developed a long time ago in a world of serious threat where any uncertainty literally could get you into trouble. Okay? And here's the first thing, is your brain is a negative assessment machine. It assumes that there is negative intent and bias in everything. You can have a well-trained trader sitting beside a fear-based trader. They will be looking at the same charts, but they would be interpreting them very differently, because the fear-based trader is still mindless, still blind to how you can train the brain and mind, and all they're seeing is negative bias. They're just seeing reasons not to get in the trade. They're trading not to lose. Whereas a successful trader, trained, begins to see the opportunity that's there outside of fear. The second thing, and this is really important for fear-based and impulse folk, is your brain does not distinguish between uncertainty and fear. Your brain evolved at a time where it was better to assume that a saber-toothed tiger was behind every bush out there, 1 in 10,000, than to say, there's only 1 in 10,000 chance. We can assume that we can have a really good life, and the truth is we might have a loss here or there. The problem was your brain was trained to keep you away from loss because it meant your life. And my promise to you, when you're trying to sit there and pull the trigger and you feel fear just absolutely wipe you out and hijack you, what you're doing is you're back in that primitive brain and it's hijacked your ability to think. Your brain, this is where it gets really interesting, folks. Your brain, if left to its own devices, organizes you to avoid uncertainty and fear. There you go. How are you going to become a trader if, in fact, you have a default programming in your brain that says, no, we're going to keep you out of uncertainty. We're going to trade not to lose. We're going to find reasons for you not to get in the trade. Then it gets more diabolical. Then the brain, finding success in short-term survival, forms self-fulfilling patterns based on this avoidance of fear and uncertainty. And they go on automatic. They just simply go in there, they go into your neural circuitry, and they become familiar, and all of a sudden you become blind to that they're even in operation. And then suddenly, your state of mind is dominated by fear, by uncertainty that has been linked to the fear. And you end up finding what you fear. Everywhere you see, you're looking at negative intent, you're looking at uncertainty, you're looking at fear, looking for the booger man, and by George, there it is in trading. I promise you, when the moment risk shows up, then once these things go on automatic, once these patterns go on automatic, they become self-fulfilling beliefs. And suddenly what you're doing is you're trading from avoidance or greed rather than from calm authority. That's your brain on trading. Now, if you do not change it, it is going to keep you stuck in the self-limiting patterns that it designed a long time ago. So, the question is, how do you go about working with this? Well, the first thing, you need to understand what an emotion is and the way it works, because it's not what you think it is. An emotion is not a feeling, okay? An emotion, and this is going to be a kind of a dry neurobiological look at what an emotion is, okay? Is that an emotion is any perturbation, any change in a standard sensorial pattern that's already been established. That means, for instance, what that means in trader talk would be that you're looking at setups, okay? There's no threat there, there's no risk there, and suddenly you start looking for evaluation points and you start looking for entry points. All of a sudden there is a deviation to the standard sensorial pattern of avoidance. And what happens is an emotion automatically triggers out of that. Now, what you need to know about an emotion to be able to manage it and to thwart it and to be able to change it in the direction that you need it is to understand the composition of an emotion. The first part of it is to recognize that fear as an emotion is biological. It is not psychological. It hijacks psychology. It hijacks mind. That's the point here, guys. It is biological. And the first part you need to know is arousal. This is the ramping up of fear. This is like when you're trading and you're looking at your point of where fear takes over, what you're going to be noticing is your heart rate starts increasing. You're going to start noticing your breath either stops or it starts panting high. You're going to start noticing your muscles are tensing. It's ramping you up for fight or flight. That's what it's doing. This is arousal, and it has to be interrupted. And in my programming, what I do is I teach emotional regulation where you interrupt that pattern, particularly by breathing and relaxation. It's not the cure, but it interrupts it, because if arousal hits a critical mass area, what happens is you're toast. The second part of an emotion you really need to know about is motivation. This is what the emotion is telling you to do, okay? And it's going to be attack, avoid, or approach. If you're impulse-oriented, you're going to notice that it's very much attack-oriented. If you're fear-based, you're going to notice that it's avoidance, okay? Run, hide, freeze, submit. If, with training, you come to the approach, what you discover is you find curiosity, you find calm authority, you find a totally different mindset. Then, meaning, self-limiting beliefs become fused into the emotion, where your ability to be able to deal with your environment, your trading environment, becomes compromised, and you come to believe that you're inadequate, you don't matter, you're not worthy, or you're powerless. This is the thing that has to be truly changed in the level of neural circuitry. The last piece of an emotion that we address here is feeling. And the truth is, feeling, the only thing it's really good for is to be able to notice that the emotion is there. It's the subjective experience of the emotion. And unfortunately, medical science has a tendency to want to medicate that feeling, the subjective experience, rather than get at the arousal and the motivation and the meaning. That's a problem for us. Totally different discussion. The key, particularly with males have a very difficult time being able to access the feeling element of an emotion. What I train most men to do is to notice the motivation that they feel and they see in their performances, and then to also observe the arousal. That'll tell them that the emotion is present and what emotion is there. That becomes very powerful. This is where emotional regulation, mindfulness really occur. Now, what let's do. Oh, and the last one's temperament. And unfortunately, what happens is we don't have any impact on temperament. That's our genetic predisposition. It's something that you can work with. If you're born an anxious type, what that means is you're probably simply, as much regulation as you do, you're still going to need to design a kind of trading that allows for that. So that's your genetic predisposition. So let's take a look. Now we begin to understand the brain, and now fear. Now let's take a look at the glitch. Okay? How does it stop you from following your trading plan? Again, what happens is your brain does not distinguish fear from uncertainty. And it is biased to seek certainty. It will create all sorts of explanations just to feel certainty there, because it takes it out of chaos. And chaos to the brain means fear of death. So confusion, I want you to take a look at this graph. Ultimately, out of uncertainty, which, by the way, is what you're learning to manage in trading, there is no escaping uncertainty in trading. Out of uncertainty comes ambiguity. There is no final answer. Out of ambiguity, to the brain, comes confusion. The brain becomes confused. It doesn't have a ready-to-hand exact way of acting on this. It has no standard process of dealing with it because it's uncertain. What that does, biologically, your brain is mandated to trigger to fear. This is the cycle, this is the sequence you're looking at right here, that you're going to have to interrupt and retrain the brain and hence the mind, because your mind, what you call mind, is simply emerges out of your brain. So here it is. And my friends, the socially linked emotional brain, once it gets to fear, is going to stampede and herd. That is what the market makers are depending on. That is what they're shopping for. That's what they're fishing for. And what they know is that with dips and crannies, what happens is people will trigger to fear and they will do irrational things. And what happens? They have you. Meanwhile, they're sitting there in calm, disciplined authority, and they're trading and playing you. And that's when the moment you move to fear, that is when you're transferring your hard-earned asset to these guys who are emotionally very literate and can play the game. So, let's actually think about what happens once fear has been aroused. There is a critical mass. And that particular time, it's like a switch goes off. And then logical, clear thinking is absolutely hijacked. Suddenly, what are happening is impartiality and discipline are compromised. And the truth is that's why that once you do the trade day and you're doing your review, you're looking at it and you're going, what was I thinking? Well, the truth is you weren't. Clear thinking has been hijacked and you're reacting from fear and you're producing avoidance, or you might have been revenge trading, lost, and then you get angry and you're going to get it back. You're an impulse. Once impartiality and discipline have been compromised, thinking becomes fear-based. That means that you're going to be all about avoidance and hesitation, or you're going to react impulsively to perceived threat. You literally become a horse in a burning barn. And I can promise you, if you've ever tried to lead a horse in a burning barn out of the barn, you'll find yourself being stomped to death. It's really like when a person is drowning and another person tries to save them. It would make sense that the person drowning would say, okay, he's trying to save me, I'm in good shape. No, what happens is that the drowning, panicking person actually takes down the person trying to save. That's impulse reaction. That's how powerful this stuff is. Then, that short-term strategy of the brain becomes wired into reactive pattern, and what it does is it generalizes. So every time it sees threat, it already triggers, and it swallows mind, takes over mind. This is impulse, and this is where you have to start interrupting the ability of your brain to do that, because you have to bring a very different mindset to uncertainty to be able to do it. At this particular time, once your brain's been hijacked, your trading plan is missing in action. A little later, you come to your senses, you come to your right mind, you look at it and go, well, what happened? You've been hijacked. That's what's been happened. And it is your responsibility to train your brain and mind so that it doesn't get hijacked. In fact, it stays in a calm, disciplined state of mind. So, understand this. This is what you're up against. The brain was never built for trading. It has to be built. Now, what happens? What happens? How does this stuff all integrate? How does this all integrate? Well, okay, what we've got here, this brain has made some short-term decisions about survival, and they've been successful. It's kept you out of the trade. It's produced hesitation. And so from its standpoint, from the limbic standpoint, well, it's been successful. I'm going to wire it into pattern. What happens there is the fear-based assumption that the limbic brain has assumed has been wired, and it becomes, guess what? It becomes your unexamined beliefs. And those are the ones that are driving your trading. Then, the moment uncertainty is triggered, danger is the word the brain hears. Out of that, what pops up are these adapted self-limiting beliefs. This is your perceptual map that's now been embedded into your brain. This is what you were born into. This is what you bring to trading. It's not what is going to make you a successful trader, though. Suddenly, 3 routes can occur. One is you can go down impulse trading, and that's when you're attacking. And understand, you're mindless at this point. You're the horse in the burning barn. Or it's going to go down fear-based. And that's when you're hesitating, that's when you're just freezing, and that's when you just absolutely go bananas in the trade. Or, with emotional regulation training and mindfulness training, what you do is you become a mindful trader. That means a totally different thing that we're going to be getting to. Ultimately, this is where you win, because you learn to take the impulse, you learn to take the motivation from attack and avoid, which are very reactive, to approach, which allows you to create new beliefs and new ways of interacting with the market. And it can be done, fortunately. And it's exactly what I teach. Now that we have a grounding, let's start taking and saying, what actually are these fears that are driving me? And what I hope that you do, as I go through these, what I hope you do is write them down and start really listening to your body and start seeing which ones resonate with you. Because this allows you to label the fear that consumes your trading. It's a powerful first step. It takes you just from cognition, what we're talking about right now, to going, oh my gosh, this is the fear. Okay, now I know what I'm working with. It's no longer just some amorphous fear sitting out there. No, it's real labeled fear. The first is the fear of uncertainty. You will know that's there. You will know that's there when you're the one who hesitates. That's the one who has all those evaluation points, and what happens is you're just looking for more confirmation. Meanwhile, the points are going up, and by the time you get into the trade, it's all over. The second one is fear of loss. All those out there who have a real serious problem pulling the trigger, what you will notice in your mind, there is an internal dialogue, and it is going, you're going to lose. What if you lose? And suddenly, what you're doing is you are acting from fear of loss. The impulse side of the equation is fear of missing out. Oh my God, it's there. I need to get it back. I need to get it back. Oh, I can just jump into this thing. I can jump into this. And that is what is commonly referred to in the vernacular as greed. Much more accurate from a biological perspective to call it fear of missing out. Then, revenge trading. That's when suddenly there's this fear-based urgency to jump into trade because you've lost and you have to make it up. This is a powerful one, and this is where you truly need impulse training. And this is where emotional regulation trading is absolutely vital, because you actually have to change a biological pattern, not a psychological belief at this particular time. Then, probably the largest one that most traders actually work with, and the craziest, is the fear of not being right, of making a mistake. Is that you've got to be right all the time or something's wrong with you. And the truth is, really great traders, the ones who trade successfully, recognize that there's going to be some losing going on in trading. You're going to have losing days. You might even have losing weeks. But what happens is you know that losing is part of the game. It's as much a part of the game as winning. That's why you have that methodology. That's why you learn to develop a brain and a mind that allows you to focus on what it takes for peak performance. Then there's the fear of inadequacy. I need external validation. I'm never good enough. I'll never be able to learn this. You know that one? A huge one for people who are kind of like semi-confident is they start putting some great days together. They actually start winning some money. And then what happens is a little voice in the back of their head starts going, oh, it's getting too good. It's getting too good. You're going to blow it. You're going to blow it. It's just too good. And you start listening to that self-fulfilling prophecy, and before you know it, there it is. You blow yourself up. Self-sabotage. Then there's the fear of success and failure. And what I want to do is focus on fear of success. It's very common for a guy to have a sense of worth. If I make $100,000 a year, that's it. I have traders who are hitting that $100,000 a year, and what happens, they recognize they can't get beyond it. Their worth has been tied up in a number that defines success. And what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to beat that down to go to another level where their worth can be redefined, not as their performance of success, but as simply their performance. It's just a performance of trading. You're competent in trading. It's not a statement about your being. There's also simply the fear of growth and change. Your brain develops this comfort zone, and it locks you in like a prison. And the moment that you try to get out of that comfort zone, you discover the bars. And you have to push beyond it. Friends, what I really hope you've done here is I hope you have really listened to this, and I hope you have pad and paper, and I hope you have written down the one that actually drives your trading, because this is essential as a first step to overcoming fear and impulse in your trading. Now, what's interesting is that, remember when we were talking about one of the elements of fear, of emotion, is the meaning that has become fused into the fear. And here are those primordial, very primitive elements of belief about self that are driving your fear and driving your performance to lackluster results. The first is the fear of inadequacy, that you're simply not good enough. This is, particularly for males, this is such hard work for them to acknowledge that this is actually the driver in the back of their mind. But the truth is trading does not allow you to get away with self-deception. It will blow up your P&L. The second one is fear of not mattering. I have to prove myself by performance. Okay? And when you get into these trading rooms on the internet, you'll start hearing everybody making all these great trades, and you're the only one that seems to be just kind of messing around and stuff like that. What you'll discover is 90 to 95% of those people are actually losing, but what they're doing is they have a virtual persona that nobody's checking their P&L, so but nobody knows, and they've got a fraud going. A fear of unworthiness, a huge one. This is when your net worth, your P&L, becomes a representation of your self-worth. Until this is changed, until trading becomes an assessment of your performance and competency in mastering risk management, okay? That's what it is, rather than an indictment of your worth as a human being. That has to be overcome. The last one that all fears are based in is the fear of powerlessness. A lot of men get into trading, and what happens is they believe, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to be the big bad guy. And in America, we call that the alpha male. And it works pretty well in a corporate environment. They want everybody to submit, and they have to win. Then they get downsized, and they're trading. They've got this really nice little 401k or some lump sum guy, and they start trading, and they start trying to be alpha male. They start trying to dominate market. They start saying, I'm going to make the market to do. I'm going to get it. I'm going to do it. And the truth is, the market does not care. The market doesn't care in the same way that waves on an ocean don't care that they're surfers of those waves. It's irrelevant. What happens is that the surfer, the mindset of the surfer that's interacting with 40-foot waves in Hawaii, if there is a fear-based perception of that surfer to hit a wave like that, the chance of wipeout is great. However, with skill and a strong mindset, a skillful surfer looks at the wave and he sees the entry point. He learns how to ride that tube, and he gets an incredible ride. He gets the rush of being in synchrony, in harmony with that wave rather than attacking it. He's being with it. And that's the same kind of attitude that has to be developed in trading. Now, here's the deal. These are the self-limiting beliefs that we have all been these are the ones that have to be reorganized to move from a fear-based to a probability-based state of mind. So, we've looked at emotion. We've talked about the biology. Now let's move into mind. The first thing, thought. To the neuroscientist, thought is actually a biological behavior that's occurring in the brain. Thought to the neuroscientist as a behavior is the same thing if you take and flex your muscles, like your arm and you're showing your bicep. That's a behavior that muscles do, flex. The behavior that neurons do is something, this electrical behavior called thought. Mind emerges from that and creates meaning. This is where it gets really interesting. In my work, I teach mindfulness because the truth is you need to separate from thought. In mindfulness, you take a step back and you begin to look at the self and you go, wow, look at all these thoughts going on in mind. They're not me. What's happened is that my awareness has become fused to them and it blinds me to other possibilities. I get stuck in a box called fearful trading or impulse trading, and yet I haven't been able to look and see what's going on that drives that. With the tool of mindfulness, that's exactly what you develop. And what you discover when you produce mindfulness and you produce separation, and all of a sudden, actually what I teach is very similar and akin to Zen Buddhism, where you learn to become witness to the thoughts running in mind, but you do not fuse to them. You do not identify with them. And what you discover is that all these thoughts running in mind, there's actually an organization to them. And it's called the internal dialogue. They're not running rampant in your mind. This is your source of ungrounded assessments that predict the future. And what you notice is that it is a dialogue in pairs between different elements in your mind. Your mind, a little later today, becomes a much more complicated, nuanced thing than what you think of it as some undifferentiated things, and these are just thoughts running in mind. It's much more marvelous and ingenious than that. And here's the key. Thoughts are the voice in which your beliefs show up in your mind. Once you grasp that, you go, oh, these aren't me? No. And by the way, you do not have thoughts. Thoughts have you. You do not have beliefs. Beliefs have you. Until you produce mindfulness and produce some separation, you are going to be their victims. You are going to drift in the currents of that belief system. And when that interacts with trading and it's fear-based, it's not pretty. So, get this thing and remember it. I ask you to write this down. Thoughts are the voice in which your beliefs show up in your mind. It is a powerful way of understanding thought. And from there, let's take a look at how these thoughts organize into what I call the historical internal dialogue of self-limitation. Okay? This is your fear-based internal dialogue that is trading you. You know, you're basically, from my standpoint, until you produce mindfulness, you are blind. You are asleep at the wheel of these internal forces going on in your mind. And here are the two sides that you really truly have to become aware of initially. The inner critic. The inner critic is associated with this negative assessment machine called the brain, and it's the part that criticizes you. It's the part of you that does not want to go beyond the comfort zone and tempts you to come back in. It is the part that judges you. If you have, oh my God, I'll never make it, what you're doing is you are listening to the inner critic. However, it's in a dance. It's in a dance. It's just in this paired dancing team with the adapted voice. And this adapted voice is your brain that has adapted to the circumstances that you got born into, and it creates certain roles and perceptual maps of the way the world is. Everything's hunky-dory, and you have avoided all these psychological demons your entire life. Then you got into trading, and you discovered the kind of thinking that got you into trading is not the kind of thinking that's going to make you a successful trader. Because ultimately, trading, you no longer have to worry about avoiding your psychological demons, which we're talking about here. They're going to stalk you. They are going to stalk you, and they're going to continue stalking you until you confront them and examine them and reorganize the belief system that you are. And here's the downside. The adapted voice, you'll know it by the doubter. That's the one, oh, I'll never win. If you can hear it. Oh, what's the LOL, LOL. You know, I see other people winning, but it's not for me. Chicken Little. That's that negative appraisal stuff, that negative intent. You're looking at it and you're finding every reason in the world not to get in the trade rather than saying, does this setup match up to the criterion in my trading plan? Completely different thing. Chicken Little is always going to find the reason not to get in. The gambler, you don't leave any money on the trade. Just get all of it. I'm mad at myself because I left, there were extra 3 ticks I could have got. Of course, it's uncertain. You have no idea. And if you're using your criterion, you got a reasonable profit. But the gambler isn't satisfied with a reasonable profit. The perfectionist. This is where the vast majority of traders lie. This is the problem that every trader, most traders, literally between 65 and 75% of traders get consumed by this adapted voice. It has to win every time to prove its worth, to prove that it matters, to prove that it's adequate. And the truth is, in trading, you're going to lose. The deal is to have a methodology and a mindset that allows you to win far more often than you lose and to keep your winners much larger than your losers. That's a master state of mind for trading. A perfectionist has a hard time doing that because every time there's a loss, they see that as a reflection of their worth or their mattering. The entitled one, I deserve to win. I deserve to take everything. That's a good way to blow up. The con, this is when you're lying to yourself and you say in self-deception. The fraud, this is pretending to look good. You know, you're at a cocktail party, a person comes up to you, asks, what do you do? Oh, I trade. Then say, wow, can you make money trading? And all of a sudden you create all these elaborate ruses, these identities and these lies about yourself and trading. And you know, you're conning yourself. You're being a fraud. The orphan. In Jungian psychology, the orphan is equivalent to the limbic system, okay? And this is where all your fear resides. If you are in fear and impulse, I promise you that the orphan in you is large. We'll be getting to more of the Jungian archetypes in a moment. The saboteur. That's the part of you that when you get a few good trades going, get a few good days going, get a few good weeks going, that little voice inside your head keeps going, it's too good, you're going to blow it up, you're going to blow it up. That is the adapted self as saboteur, and all of a sudden you fall into the self-fulfilling prophecies. Then, the alpha. I have to win to prove myself. And boy, that one just absolutely blows up. I can't tell you how many men in their late 40s, 50s, and 60s that I've worked with that come out of corporate America thinking that There are leadership skills in there. All that stuff is going to work well in trading. And what they discover is completely different universes. You have to develop a completely different set of skills to be able to trade successfully. You're not going to take from the market. You're going to see what it's going to give you. It's very different. My friends, if you take what we've done here and you say these are the ones that are going on, so far you have got three huge concepts here. One is you are being able to see, literally, you're able to label your fear. So you know what it is. It's not in the dark anymore. The second is you have now found the self-limiting belief behind that fear. That says four things. Then you're saying, now you have the ability of saying, I know what my historical internal dialogue is. And this is the composition. This is the self-limiting beliefs that are given voice as thoughts in my mind. All of a sudden you begin to say, gosh, this is not the organization of self that I want to be trading. This is what I got born into and became, but I need to change. And how do you do that? Well, friends, what you do is you begin to realize that your mind is far more complicated, far more nuanced than you ever imagined. I use the analogy of a trading committee. It's actually a committee. I even call it a board of directors, where there's a power struggle going on, the board of directors. There's a takeover attempt going on, and there's a battle going on. And the problem is that you, the owner, have been asleep at the wheel. Waking up, you begin to say, oh my God, these are different parts of myself. And the real question becomes, who controls your trading committee? If you remain mindless, you continue to dwell and create your world from the self-limiting belief, and that means a shrinking P&L. The internal dialogue controls the story you create about trading. Being mindless to these voices simply leads and keeps you imprisoned in fear-based and impulse-based trading. When you begin to disrupt the grip of fear, it opens you to the potential living within you, and you realize there is far more to you than just these elements of the limiting historical dialogue. And you really begin to grasp the idea that you have the power to reinvent the self. And that actually brings us to the third part, and that is you start developing mindfulness, and with that you use it as a tool to develop a powerful trading committee in your mind. You awaken the heroes. And these are powerful, okay? These are powerful. And what I want to do is I want to talk about them. My friends, in the same way that fear resides in you, in Jungian terms, that's called orphan. In the same way the orphan resides in you, in the same way that you have a fearful outlook, so does discipline live within you. So does patience live within you. So does courage live within you. And so does impartiality. These are elements within your personality. If you are human, if you're part of the human condition, these are elements that are inherent to your being. The key is, in mindfulness and applied mindfulness, you begin to start looking for discipline. And discipline is, in Jungian talk, is called the ruler. It's going to generate a kingdom. It's going to organize that kingdom for efficient functioning. There is a caregiver. That's the one that nurtures, that has compassion for, and takes care of your fear. And you need that part. There is a warrior that defends the boundaries of that kingdom. It's called forth, and what it does is it confronts the inner critic. It has the courage to overcome fear, push through it, and to push the button and the trigger on a trade. And also, you find in you that you have impartiality. The key is you have to focus on it, bring it into being, and that is in Jungian talk called sage. That's the one that you're clear thinking, and that's the one you want trading. However, you have to produce emotional regulation. Otherwise, fear is going to contaminate impartiality, sage, so that your trading is hijacked. These are the elements of the mind that can be developed, and they're there. Its ability, do you have the skills and tools to develop this part of the self? Now, how do you go about doing this? Okay? There are core skills for emotional regulation, pattern disruption, and long-term change. The first that I put in the rubric of emotional regulation is breathing and relaxation. The truth is, breathing is a part of an emotional state. If you disrupt and change the breathing style, you automatically disrupt and change the emotional state. Powerful stuff. I use it to train traders to be able to interrupt the arousal element of an emotion, to be able to produce a calm body and a still mind. Very powerful stuff. That goes along with the relaxation, because what happens is the tenseness in the body is the revving up of an emotion, and you got to get it before it trips the switch. And with training, what you do is you learn to relax the muscles, thereby being able to control the intensity of the emotion and not letting it sweep your mind away. Powerful, important stuff. The next skill that has to happen is you have to become mindful. You take thoughts off automatic and you start redirecting the focus of attention. You begin to realize that you and your thoughts are not the same, and you're no longer associating yourself with your self-limiting beliefs. These are simply self-limiting beliefs that are living within me. They're not me. Huge difference. Then, with mindfulness as a tool, you start personal development. This is when you start developing these attributes that live within you of discipline, ruler, of patience, caregiver, of impartiality, sage, and of courage, warrior. These are the elements of self you need to develop to be in your trading committee to make your decisions while trading. It happens every day. I see it done with all my clients. And the truth is one thing you need to really get. If you want to reorganize the core beliefs that are trading, it is compassion that changes emotional states. It is not beating yourself up. It never works, and it continues them. Now, if you want to change core material, it's compassion, and the truth is you stay away from thinking that NLP, general meditation, biofeedback is going to change the core beliefs. Core belief requires a lot more work than that. Now, and ultimately, this is what it looks like, friends. As you develop mindfulness and develop these other elements of the self, these inner resources, you create a psychological edge. And suddenly, what you do is you're moving down an emotionally regulated, calm, focused mindset where you begin to trade mindfully and you're actually aware of what things are going on. And suddenly you notice the committee that's actually constitutes your mind is no longer this historical fear-based or impulse-based piece of thinking. What it is, it's controlled by a ruler that has the discipline to organize this committee and to keep it solid. The second, there's a warrior there that truly has the courage to confront every psychological demon within you, because you realize it's just a self-limiting belief. It has no power other than the power you give it. You develop the patience, the caring, to be able to wait for the moment to stay with the plan. You also develop impartiality, the sage. That's the one that you want trading. When you're trading from a position where you're evaluating setups based on your trading plan, you are in sage. The thing is you can remanufacture the beliefs that you have so that that's a dominant player and that you're managing the fear of the orphan. This is when it becomes powerful. Otherwise, what happens, you stay in fear-based trading. Now, what I like to do, I'm having an upcoming course starting in late July where I'm actually training people to go through this process. And here are the 5 steps that I train to, and this is what's taught in this 4-week course. First is emotional regulation. What you would learn is to interrupt the arousal of the emotion so that it doesn't sweep you away. You will learn specifically when you're in a particular moment that creates problems, you learn how to calm that down so that you begin to reassess and you come back to a calm state of mind. The second stage of my work is I develop mindfulness for you. You learn how to pause, to step back out of the fear, and you begin to observe thought, not as who you are, but as the beliefs living as thoughts in your mind. You are not them, and you're beginning to have a lot of power by separating from them. The third stage of the work is you begin to disrupt the internal dialogue because you recognize it's not who you are. You begin to question it, you begin to examine it, and you discover that it is just full of biases, it is full of judgment, it is full of unexamined assessments of self with no grounding, and you get tremendous freedom. Then, you don't stop there, you use mindfulness, being able to direct the awareness into areas of the self that you have pushed away. And what you do is you discover the ruler, discipline. You discover the sage, impartiality. You discover the caregiver, your patient. This is where you actually reorganize the mind away from the internal dialogue to the powerful elements of self. And you become trader's state of mind. Changes everything. The question, like this woman in the beginning, where she realized that it was not her systems that was the problem. She was realizing that she was the problem. My question is, do you want to develop your mind for peak performance trading? And here's the deal. There's a couple things I truly recommend. I recommend this 4-week course, Developing Your Trader's State of Mind. 4-week course. And right now, we're offering a $100 discount, and you'll see the code down there. The other powerful option is the actual individual course with me. It comes with what I call the 10-PAL package of a powerful Ignite programming that we go through over about a 3-month process. It's for people who are very serious, who have decided that they really need to change, and they know that they really need a mentor to kind of help wade them through. Otherwise, there are lots of other opportunities on the website, lots of free articles, lots of free interviews. There's a trader questionnaire that will really help you zone in on the problems. And this is the key. Now, I'm finished, and apparently I'm getting my voice back. I thank you for being patient. But I do want to remind you is that the code for the $100 discount on the course, on this 4-week course, is down at the bottom, and it's good till July 20th. I really hope you take advantage of it. If you're serious about changing the course of your trading, this is a powerful step you can take. So, friends, questions? You got any questions for me? Well, I'm not seeing any. So, with that, my friends, I want to thank you for being here. And I really, truly, what my hope is for you is that the dreams and the goals that got you into trading, I personally hope you find them. I hope you achieve them. And I hope your journey. Ever thought of a book on psychology ideas for scalpers? Well, I work with a lot of scalpers, and ultimately, I would. It's the time frames, and there's an intense need for emotional state management for scalpers. It's intense need. I work with a number, and literally, what happens is they really have to build a mindset that they take into trading. And before the action starts, because, it's hot and heavy. You may be only in there for a moment, is you have to maintain emotional sobriety. And my book goes into a long ways of discussing that. So, let's see here. Okay, no more questions. Very well done. Okay, no more. Well, friends, I really appreciate it, and I hope your journey is prosperous. With that, I wish you a good day and have a great life.